what's up, everybody? Just got off a live webinar with my good friend Daniel Shankin, Daniel Sita Ramdas of TAM Integration, past podcast guest, and lovely human being, new daddy as well. So congrats to him and his family. I think it was a couple months ago, but still, congratulations and well wishes are always welcome, right? So yeah, it was Thank You Plant Medicine. It's Thank You Plant Medicine Day. It is that day, February 20th, 2020. It was really cool. One of the creators of the Thank You Plant Medicine movement, John, was on the call from Costa Rica. Past podcast guest Tom Hatsis, Daniel Negrin of San Francisco Psychedelic Society, selling seashells by the seashore, 76 times speedy. Sorry for all this there. It was really cool. I'm leaving people out, but people from like decriminalization movements in Oakland and in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and DC, and people from Texas and Costa Rica. A lot of people. It was really cool. It was good. We all went around, shared our stories. I believe you can go and see the recording. It was live, but if you go to TAM Integration, you could probably find it there and check it out. I think it was a good amount of people. But anyway, it was pretty cool. I mean, yeah, Thank You Plant Medicine, I think is, I guess it's weird. I've been off social media. I deleted Facebook and Twitter and Instagram off of my phone because I am just not able to control myself with wasting ungodly amounts of time. Ungodly? I mean, time, but that doesn't make sense. Wasting time in like mind-numbing activities. They're mindless activities. I get sucked into that stuff. So I wanted to take a break. So I wasn't able to get on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and do the whole Thank You Plant Medicine thing, but I did participate in this thing. And I said this the other night at a talk I gave at CSU Psychedelic Club. Big shout out to them, Teresa, Mycelia, and all the Ryan and the people that organized the Psychedelic Club at CSU. It was a good turnout, good people, good mind jam that we had. So I've been doing these things called mind jams, and it was my second one actually. It went really well. I hope to do them more around town and get the people moving, get the people talking. Getting a good jam of the minds, of the hearts, the bodies, the souls. A nice satsang, if you will. So I brought this up the other night, and it was about just the insane privilege that it is to be able to have access to psychedelics, entheogens, plant medicines. The privilege it is to have access to these things. And for those of us fortunate enough to have access and to have community and to have ceremony and to develop ritual and to really make this a part of our lives, and for those of us that have had transformative experiences, profound experiences, I feel in a way that it's like we have to kind of remember that this is a tremendous privilege, and that to be grateful for that privilege, but also to speak out and to share and to tell people about your story, and to be, in a way, an ambassador for Gaia, an ambassador for life, for a better reality, a more conscious, connected, community-driven reality. So, yeah, I think I've heard Terrence say something like this before, like the mushrooms are the cosmic ambassadors of the galactic multiverse senate, or something to that effect. But he's right in a way. It's almost like if we're psychonauts, if we're psychedelic journeyers, or whatever we're doing, and we're benefiting from these things, it's almost like, this is our opportunity to share that and spread that, and don't hold back. Life is very short. As a lifelong procrastinator, vagabond, kind of I don't know, ne'er-do-well type of person, I'm starting to realize now that I'm in my 30s that I'm like, shit, like, after this is the 40s, and then 50s, 60s, 70s, if I'm hopefully, 80s, 90s, if I'm lucky, and then we're out of here. It's not really that, it's not a lot of time. I mean, I think about all the things that I want to do and say and be, and we have to do it now. It has to happen now. And it's a balance, and I'm still learning that balance of like not being like insane, so we're like screaming our heads off and like demand, not that kind of like forceful, like it's gotta be now. But you know what I'm saying. I can't articulate it in the way that I want to right now, but yeah, just thank you, plant medicine, for all that you've done for me. And really, I say this quite a bit too. These things are symbiotic. It's a symbiotic relationship here. These psychoactive compounds in plant medicines and other entheogens and psychedelics don't work without us. Now, I don't know, do we work without them? I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess. But like, what kind of work? Like, what kind of functioning do we want humanity to be able to execute on? What like, what is good? I would argue that, we need altered states. We need experiences that psychedelics can provide in order to help us construct the kind of loving, caring world that we would prefer to live in, right? Because it's like we could live, and human beings we're very adaptable. We can adapt to all kinds of circumstances. I mean, in a large way, we have adapted to this domesticated sort of box-like, you go to your house box, to your car box, to your job box, get a drink in the bar box. But we are very good at adapting and being molded and shaped into changing circumstances. That's how we have survived for a long period of time. I remember in the book Born to Run, Christopher McDougall talks about human beings' abilities to be adaptable to changing circumstances. Running and these ultra marathon runners, like, how do they do it? What's going on? Well, they were like running down the animals and getting good exercise and good group community bonding. But the adapting to the changes, right? Adapting to the colder temperatures, adapting to the hotter temperatures, adapting to just to whatever situation that we've been presented with over time, we've adapted to survive. So, right now, I think we're doing that. But the point of that is that those of us fortunate enough to have breakthrough, profound psychedelic experiences, or just fortunate enough to have access to psychedelics and entheogens and plant medicines that benefit us in some way, we need to speak about it in the way that we feel proud, like to share, to say, hey, this is something that is great, and this is something that has helped me, and be an ambassador for Gaia, for the earth, for a better reality, for a higher level of conscious thinking, for creativity, communion, connection, for the increase in diversity and novelty, for spontaneous, infinite creation to keep flowing and occurring. That's what's really exciting. So, the plant medicine, the Thank You Plant Medicine Day, I think is really cool because maybe it's encouraging people to come out and share. Coming out of the psychedelic closet, coming out, speaking out, standing in your truth, and like I said, time is we have a limited time here. I think that we want to try and do what we can to make this time right here, right now, great. And if these things have helped you, let's get it out there more and more. I mean, the rate of change is increasing faster and faster. Decriminalization movements are spreading. The mainstreaming of these things in terms of the acceptability, the palatability, and the collective consciousness, the masses, it's increasing more and more. So let's not take our foot off the gas. Let's keep that thing going until the wheels fall off the car. All right. Well, anyway, that's what I want to say. Today's guest is Tricia Eastman. She is a psychedelic practitioner. She is an amazing person who runs retreats, who hosts retreats. Excuse me. I'm having one of those, like, I feel like I'm gonna I don't know if I'm gonna like cough, sneeze, or burp. So I apologize. I'm not editing this out. Okay, this is real. This is real life. This is what's going on. But yeah, she go to her website, psychedelicjourneys.com. She runs medicine retreats in Mexico, in Tulum. She works with the Sonoran Desert Toad, the 5-MeO DMT producing Bufo Alvarius toad. She does all kinds of wonderful retreats. You can find out all the information on her website at psychedelicjourneys.com. And yeah, it was just wonderful to talk to her, just to get her perspective, to see how she's working with plant medicines, see how she's using her knowledge, her skills, her tool sets to give back and to offer these deep immersion retreats and initiations and integration work, as well as her shamanic integration program. But yeah, she's definitely doing a lot of really cool things, and I think that one of the things that we talked about in the episode that I liked a lot was the merging of ancestral practices and technologies with modern protocols, really geared towards our Western mind, the mind that we have been that has been developing through the West, through the people of the West, right? Because it's a very different kind of evolution. There's a different there's different programming and conditioning and baggage and trauma and all that kind of stuff versus other areas, other people. So yeah, I love what she does. She's very respectful to the traditions that have come before, and integrates into offering something that works for people who are in the Western world and needing to have these experiences to heal their traumas and in some ways level up, and a lot of people that are trying to be productive and innovate in the world, and they want to do good, but they're not sure of where to go or what to do, but they have the means, and they have the tools, and they have the resources. On the external front, they just need to go inside. If these people can transform themselves internally, wake up, see the light, heal, integrate, then maybe they can offer really good solutions for the rest of us, right? I mean, I think of someone like I don't know, like Tesla, right? I mean, like he's trying to, I just called him Tesla, Elon Musk, the Tesla company, trying to make no emission cars and change things and innovate things. And I think that he sees things in a very particular kind of way, right? And so what are some other people that are maybe at that sort of, I mean, I don't know if anyone's at his level, but at trying to aspire to make change at a big level, who are driven, who are a little crazy, and maybe we can give them a little bump in the right direction with plant medicine retreats, with healing, and those sorts of things. So anyway, great conversation with Tricia. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you like the show, you know what to do. Drop a 5-star rating review. Go to patreon.com/Mike Brank. Donate a little bit to the show. Every little bit helps. You can go to my website, mikebrank.com, and you can check it out on there as well. I also have a PayPal one-time donation if you don't want to get, in the monthly Patreon thing. But as I mentioned, big things are coming. Taking a month break, no interviews for a month, and I'm going to be really working on honing and tightening up all the things that I want to do creatively for the show, the website, the Patreon rewards. I want to work with collaborating with some artists to do some really cool Mycadelic T-shirts, stickers, things like that, and just all kinds of really creative and cool things. So that's pretty much it. This intro has gone on far too long. I apologize. Sorry, Tricia. I mean, I start talking and I always feel bad for the person who's the guest on the show. I'm like, hey, the show's out, and they're like, oh, cool. When's it going to start? Is it going to start now? I think it's going to start right now. Tricia Eastman, everyone.
Psychedelics are illegal not because a loving government is concerned that you may jump out of a third-story window. Psychedelics are illegal because they dissolve opinion structures and culturally laid down models of behavior and information processing. They open to us the possibility that everything we know is wrong.
We don't need new laws that control our consciousness and rigidly place it in a prison.
Cognitive liberty. The fact that as adults, if we're not hurting anybody else, we should have the right to explore the contours of our own consciousness without any mediation or legislation on the part of somebody else.
Reject authority. Authority is a lie.
Or is it perception?
Information is power, but we have to seize the opportunity. The opportunity.
So excited and just grateful for this opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being here. So you just got back from Tulum, right?
Yeah, so I just led a retreat in Tulum, and it's like pure heaven there. It's like we're in the biosphere in Sian Khan. It's a really beautiful space that I use regularly, that I'm able to rent regularly to do retreats, and it's just such a magical place, just incredible nature, and it was such a blessing. We're doing like Bufo Alvarius on the beach, in ceremony, Temezcal, Mayan cacao ceremony, and just everything about it is just so delicious, except the mosquitoes. You get a few mosquito bites, but other than that, it's like perfect in every way.
Yeah, I don't have like genocidal thoughts really at all, except for mosquitoes. Like I wouldn't mind just wiping them out. I think I think I would be comfortable if mosquitoes didn't exist. I don't think they serve a purpose like bees do. Bees are really important, but
yeah, I agree. I feel that like if we want to get into like the dark entities and stuff, I feel like there's a system supporting that I don't think is absolutely necessary. I
Ooh,
feel
what do you mean by
that
that? That sounds interesting.
what I mean is that it was really interesting because, my partner, he had Lyme disease for like 15 years, and he actually
Ooh.
cured it through plant medicine. And I got bit by a tick. And as I was driving myself to the emergency room, this podcast just randomly pops on my stereo of one of my friends. And he was speaking about parasites. And he said, there's more parasitic organisms in the universe than there are non-parasitic organisms. And I just felt that kind of chilling and kind of a spiritual lesson, as I've literally got this like tick embedded in my leg, and I'm like praying that it doesn't have Lyme disease, which it didn't, thank God. And I also, last year lost one of my friends in Gabon to malaria.
No, I'm sorry to hear that.
And I do really feel strongly that that consciousness can be eradicated. I think it's really about us consciously choosing and knowing that we have a choice, because I feel like it's like as above, so below. And on a more practical, pragmatic level, there's recently were some studies in Singapore. There was a episode of Nas Daily that came out, and in the episode, they actually bred mosquitoes, and the I think it's the Department of Ecology in Singapore, and don't quote me on that. I don't want to give misinformation, but literally in the episode, they bred these mosquitoes that don't bite, and when they breed with the local mosquitoes, they make it so that they can't procreate. And so I'm really interested in this. I even took a step to reach out to them, because after what's happened in Gabon, I really want to at first I had this idea that because one bat can eat up to like 15,000 mosquitoes in a day. And so I wanted to create this like bat house project where in areas that are sensitive to disease carried by mosquitoes, we could put bat houses in the areas where people are living. And hopefully that would decrease the number of incidents of malaria or dengue or yellow fever, a lot of these parasite carried diseases. And then I realized, if we can just get these mosquitoes out, then the problem's solved. So we don't even need to do that. Seems more of a quick thing.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm reminded of this information that I came across about how like grasshoppers transform into locusts when they are in like concentrated areas, and they're swarming and they're all on top of each other. And it's like some kind of, I would assume, like energetic thing that's going on that causes like a transformation, like a behavioral transformation that causes like a mutation. And then they kind of like become something else. And I could see that reflected on the human scale as well. Like the more that we concentrate into cities and urban environments and building steel, like we kind of like become different versions of what we are. Maybe not naturally what we are, but a different kind of version of that.
Yeah. And I think that we are a reflection of the earth. And I really saw this especially in like Costa Rica, in the areas where the land was more sick, where they were using a lot more pesticides. There were a lot more mosquitoes and no-see-ums and, these negative, like little biting flies and things like that. And so I believe that when we make the earth healthy, we also are going to make ourselves healthy too.
Definitely. And isn't that in the Bible too? Like when they talk about Armageddon, like all like the insects and bugs and like all that crazy stuff like coming out, like kind of sort of demonic parasitical creatures, right? Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm glad we started the podcast off with this. This is
I know. And I think this is really relevant for psychedelics. It's funny the little topics that come up, but the reason I think it's so relevant now is with all the threats with coronavirus, pandemics, all these talks related to that. Really, this work that we're doing with psychedelics, although a big piece of it is about connecting to our soul, connecting to our heart, inner empowerment, learning to turn inward versus this externally focused way that our culture has been for so long. But it's also about this cleansing process. So through all the bad choices that we've made, and mostly through ignorance, not through intention, we collect these parasites in our body, and it's quite interesting how much our microbiome determines our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like we're reconstituting our microbiome, our bodies through use of these plants and these sacred medicines, psychedelics, to clear ourselves from all the things that are not our truth.
Yeah, totally. I that's the truth. That's the truth right there. And, I like to look at it too on like the body being a microcosm of the planet, right? It's like you have all these organisms and organs that are living within the body, like billions of them working together and, trying to make this whole meat machine move and talk and walk and, all this stuff. But yeah, it's like once you kind of reconstitute that, like you said. So I imagine that if you could do that for your body, then collectively we could do that for the earth, for the planet.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two are one and the same. I mean, just like, there's plastics in our oceans, there's microplastics in the water supply that are getting into our bodies.
Yeah.
So as we're cleaning ourselves, I feel like we are cleaning the earth. And, to think that the two are separate, I think is the only thing that is of concern, because there are people out there that believe that they can be separate from the rest of society and, and not have these things have an impact on them. But they do. No one is safe, and we do need to look at things from a holistic standpoint and how our society operates in all areas: finance, health, healthcare, everything. How schooling, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. It's all connected. Yeah, and it's like sets off ripples. Wherever you are. And, if you're around people that are, polluting and toxic and abusive, and, you could feel that like ripple of energy going through. And the same thing in the other way, when you're around people that are just like positive and magnetic and clean and clear and helping and, gardening and growing. And it's like, wow, this is a whole new world. And that ripples outwards. I mean, I'm sure, I'm sure you've experienced that, right? Just being in those situations. How did you get, so, we kind of started off that you were doing Bufo ceremonies and cacao and in Tulum. And then, I was looking at your website. I know you do retreats all over the world, right? And you've had experiences where you've been initiated into certain, regions and their cultures and tribes and the way that they practice their medicine. So how did you get to be doing this stuff? Was this always something that you were interested in, or did something was something like a catalyst to propel you to this mission?
Well, it's really funny because I never was seeking it out. I've always been really into healing, holistic healing, studied it for a big portion of my life. And it really started when I went to an Iboga clinic in Mexico called Crossroads. I met the owner at an event. And I had eating disorders, and I said, hey, if this Ibogaine can work for addiction, I wonder if it can work for food addiction. And he said, I'm not really sure, but I'm interested to give it a try. He had just launched a psycho-spiritual program, doing Ibogaine in a clinical setting with Bufo Alvarius, but not for addiction. And so I got to go through that program. And it was one of the most powerful experiences. Since then, I've had many other powerful experiences, but at the time, it had been my most powerful experience to date in my life. And in that moment of just, really seeing myself for the first time, really feeling a deep connection to all things, all life, and just seeing the oneness, that thread that connects all life together. I really felt this deep sense of gratitude. And I said to the medicine, how can I serve you? How can I be of service? And within less than 3 weeks, I was asked to work for Crossroads as a facilitator. So, of course, when I was asked, I was like, what, me? I'm not a shaman. Like, why would, kind of like in my mind, this whole thing was playing out. And I was still very much, fresh from this experience and very connected to the medicine. And it just said to me, like, don't create a story about what it is. What does it feel like in your heart? Like, is this aligned for you? Does this feel like something that your heart wants? And I'm like, absolutely. So, yeah. And I still pinch myself, over 5 years later, I still pinch myself where I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe that I'm going to Tulum and I'm getting to do this sacred work with these beautiful people. And I just feel so blessed.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you were able to listen to that, because a lot of the times, that are sort of, ego constructs or identity constructs that have maybe served us for a long time in a protection sort of way for safety or comfort, right? Can sort of be that voice saying, come on, really? I don't think so. This isn't, because it feels like you're walking into this new territory that's unknown and unfamiliar. But you're right. Like you feel it. And you were mentioning the microbiome, like the second brain, the gut, like is very, and that's where the concentration of neurons is like the second most to the brain. So it's like, it would make sense. So like listening to these things are really important. And I feel that, there's a lot of people that are maybe struggling trying to find that clear connection. Right. So that's awesome that you were able to get that and then say, okay, cool. I'm going to help other people find that. Right. I'm going to help other people find that clarity. I'm curious to know if you'd like to share, what did you see and what did you find out about what was the cause of your eating disorder?
Oh my God, it's so crazy. Okay, so I don't know how I could have even figured this out. So I was in the womb, and when I was in the womb, my mother's mother died of cancer.
Oh.
Her name's Tricia. I'm named after her. And then I was born a month later. And my mom didn't make breast milk because she was grieving, and grief is stored in the breast area. So she fed me Similac. She fed me cow's milk, and I spit it all up. And I had a horrible diaper rash. And when I was younger, I used to suck my thumb. And the medicine showed me that I was sucking my thumb to try to produce digestive enzymes because I didn't get the breast milk when I was a child. My gut hadn't properly learned how to digest, and I've had food allergies my whole life. And it was my body's reaction to not being breastfed, and it was that created the eating disorder. I thought I started getting eating disorders when I was 10, when I started being self-conscious about what people thought about my body and started thinking about my weight, and it had nothing to do with that whatsoever.
Yeah, but that was like the story that made sense to you at the time because you didn't know any other way. How could you, you know?
Yeah.
But thankfully, you know, we have these gifts to help us remember and help us clear space. It's funny, I was just talking with somebody yesterday who was telling me about their daughter being born with the umbilical cord strangling her around the neck, and
Wow.
that was like a big, you know, trauma. But you know, it leads me to think that, like, you know, we talk about trauma, we talk about PTSD, we talk about these things, and oftentimes there's, you know, we tend to think that it's something that happened, you know, that was really devastating in this like waking life, and we forget about these sort of accidental things or just kind of things of happenstance that will
Hmm.
happen that nobody has any control over. They're just something that's happened. And so that's a form of trauma as well that has to be dealt with, right?
And I think, you know, that's a really beautiful example, that, you know, in our society, this trauma, basically between the ages of 0 and 7 years old, this template of your subconscious mind is being created, and it's on record. You're basically in this hypnotic state, and something happens that basically is the call to action of your hero's journey of life. And in our culture, we're just not taught how to understand that these are actually the transmutation, the, what do you call it, the iron or lead that gets transmuted into gold. This is the material that drives your story, that brings you to your highest gifts and blessings in life. And the more that I dive into myself, the more that I feel that I understand the inner workings of the universe and how this realm of duality that we live in works. And it doesn't necessarily, on the appearance of it, look fair or nice, or, you know, like it might even seem like, oh, it's out to get me, and, you know, everything's out to either suck my blood like the mosquitoes or to
Mm.
kill me or to hurt me. But really, ultimately, it's designed so that we can learn to connect to love, and we have to have those polarities to build that strength and that temperance. And so I really love the example of the trauma, because I see this so often where people have these severe traumas as even a baby. Like, I had one person, really interestingly, who had like, he thought he had like perfect parents, perfect life, but he had all these like I guess the best word would be like fear of abandonment. And we found out that he started speaking baby language when we were working together. And he had this memory of this time he was being babysat, and the woman that babysat him left him in the crib all day, didn't change his diaper, totally neglected him. So he had this like feeling of neglect from the feminine, but it didn't actually come from his mother. So like on an intellectual level, he couldn't even like really figure it out. And it wasn't until he really opened the door of the subconscious mind through altered state of consciousness that he was able to get in there and work with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it really truly is amazing. I mean, recently, even for myself, like I had an experience where it was like, I thought I had dealt with a lot of this stuff. I thought I had identified things, but then I realized there's another layer to it, or there was another piece that I didn't see. So, you know, the work always goes on, right? It's not like, you know, we're not talking about magic potions that are just like
Mm-hmm.
one and done. It's sort of, yeah, I mean, it's like it's a process, right? So you worked at Crossroads. How long did you work there for?
I would say I was more on and off for like a few years. Like the last time I worked there was like a couple of years ago, because it's like commuting back and forth to Mexico isn't like the easiest thing.
Mhm.
But I started doing the retreats 4 years ago. So I've been doing, you know, working in the clinical setting, and then as well as offering retreats with 5-MeO DMT from the Sonoran Desert Toad, as well as Iboga for the last 5 years.
Mm. And you offer like retreats all over the world, right? Is like does it depend? It has to be legal in the place that you're doing it, right?
Yeah. So we work in
That's the point.
Spain, yeah, Portugal, Costa Rica, Mexico. Those are the main places. There are other places, but just as of right now, that's really what's made sense for us. And the medicine loves it in these places too. It's so fun, doing the work, especially like in the jungle. I love doing the work in the jungle and having access to really clean water and, clean, healthy, organic food.
Yeah, definitely. It's a magical experience. I spent, almost all of 2018 in the Amazon rainforest working at the Temple of the Way of Light, ayahuasca center. So it was just when I think back to that time there, I'm always like, yeah, it's so nourishing and healing, and just to be in it, like in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Other than the mosquitoes and the ants ant problems too. People don't realize, but yeah. Tell me about some of your initiation experiences. Like I was reading some about that. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about that.
So, there's been several initiations. I've done 4 initiations in the Bwiti tradition, which are Mumbayano, which is a lineage of Bwiti, Mimbar, and I did that in with the lineage connected with Master Atum Rabenga, who lives in Gabon. And then
and that's for Iboga.
For Iboga, sorry.
Well, I assume because it's Gabon, that's sort of the birthplace of Iboga, right?
That's the birthplace of this medicine, and it's the only place in the world that it's growing. I mean, there are talks of other places where it's been planted, but it takes a long time to grow, so it's fairly new. But it's the main place that this medicine is from. And it's a very, very special place. Really powerful. It's equatorial Africa on the West Coast side. And the other tradition is Nagund Misoko, which is the lineage of the moon. It's one of the forms of Bwiti that's closest to the Pygmies, who are the forest people who originally brought Iboga to what became Bwiti. And so, yeah, I've learned so much through these initiations, and primarily the biggest thing is really about facing yourself, because Iboga is the hardest medicine to work with. And then I think doing it in Gabon adds a whole nother level of, especially for a Westerner, because we're just, it's just such a different way of being versus how we are in our Western world, even their culture. I feel, and I really do, one of the things that I feel really strongly about is cultural preservation, because I feel that when Westerners go to, let's say, Peru, or they go somewhere else, we have to really have a leave no trace mindset of, how are we impacting their culture? And there's many things that we really aren't even aware of. And I'm seeing this more so even in Gabon because of the way that their society works, being a tribal society. And I do feel that there is, training in a sense, or learning that needs to happen from someone who really understands that environment, so that you understand how to move in that place and be, invisible, blend in, without, having an impact on the society. But yeah, it's truly my last initiation was probably one of the most hard things I've done in my life. And like, I can't really talk too much about like the details of it, but I can share little pieces. Like, for instance, we had to do these choreographed dance moves on very high quantities of medicine.
Wow.
And I literally can barely even walk, and I'd do it, and I'd like try my best. And then I'd be like, okay, I get to sit down now. Yay. And they'd be like, nope, you didn't do it right. You have to go back and do it again. And I did that. I had to do that like 3 times. And in my mind, I'm just like thinking, oh my God, I just want to sit down now. So that was
what and that's like for one particular initiation in a, because you mentioned there's different lineages, right? So
Yeah.
I would imagine each one has their own kind of set of values and norms and, cosmology, mythology. Is that right? Or is it kind of similar? Like walk me through a little bit of like understanding kind of like some of the maybe challenges or differences in terms of like what you face going through the different lineages.
So, pretty much all of the lineages share one thing in common, in that they do really deep purification rituals. And so, like, you start by going into the jungle, connecting with the jungle, asking permission to the plants. And it's quite profound, because, you'll see the Ganga walk up to a tree, and his connection to the tree, to the jungle, is so deep. And I just remember in my heart just thinking, wow, this just really reminds me how much further I have to go to feel that level of connection to nature, in the way that these Gangas have this connection, which is so beautiful. And he asks permission, and he takes a machete to the bark of the tree, and he's using the bark to make these ritual baths for cleansing. And he'll cut a little square, and then when the square flips up, if it flips open, like it's open towards you, when it hits the ground, then that means you have permission to take the medicine. And then at the end, after you've taken medicine from that tree, you pick the bark up off the ground, and you put you pick the dirt up off the ground, and you put it in the area where you took the bark to kind of heal the tree, and you thank the tree, and then you leave an offering at the tree. As an appreciation. So we go through this long process, like almost spending like a day just harvesting different plants and things, and through the process learning what they mean, because they were selected for you specifically for a reason. And just the synchronicity of like, oh, he's just picking a random tree over here, and then, oh no, this tree actually is for protection, and it's going to help to protect you in the journey. And then making the ritual bath, and then from the ritual bath, there's this opportunity to really truly clean yourself. And so you're really confessing all the things that you've done wrong, and you're doing it from a place of we do more to ourselves than anything, like lying to ourselves, talking negatively towards ourselves, hiding from our power, all of these things. And so you're literally like forgiving yourself, and then you're praying for what you want. And you do these bathing rituals. Most of the traditions do them for several days. And then there's other forms of detoxification, such as there's certain plants you can take that are vomitifs, which I'm sure you're familiar with in the ayahuasca tradition as well. And then...
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah. I mean, you feel good.
Yeah, you do afterwards. You do feel good. Yeah. Yeah.
Hold on just 1 second. Oh,
yeah,
got it.
No problem.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Oh, all right, cool.
So then you have, sometimes it depends on the tradition, but they'll do ifulu, which is like a smoke bath. And literally it's almost like it's like your own sweat lodge, and they like build a fire underneath you, and they use all these different medicinal plants, kind of like sage and, you know, like our version of sage and different medicinal plants, and they smoke you out, and you're in there until you're literally almost on fire. It's just like you're sweating and you have smoke in your eyes, burning your eyes, and it's basically to detox the evil from you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Smoke is good about doing that. So this is all in preparation, like for the actual like ceremony night where you're, as I understand it, like eating scoops of like a sawdusty, you know, Iboga. That's what it is. Like, it's like, is that right? Like you're just kind of woofing it down.
Yeah. And I'm leaving out a lot of details just for the simplicity, because it is quite a sophisticated ritual. I mean, it's really like awe-striking when you watch them do, even like the way they do the baths and, you know, the ritual behind it, because everything is so deeply entrenched in ritual in Bwiti, no matter what tradition it is.
Right.
And then you're going into ceremony with the plant, and usually it's done 2 nights of medicine, one night being the night of death, and one night being the night of rebirth, where you're taking very large quantities of medicine, going on a journey.
Wow. Yeah. So is that part of the retreats that you offer as well, like those kinds of ones, or is it strictly with? You mentioned, I think it was just Bufo, or with Iboga as well.
So the difference between what we do in Gabon in the initiation is that initiations you do one time. You go in, and in that lineage, you go in and you do that initiation, and you're able to do that usually one time. As we're with the psychospiritual Iboga retreats, a lot of people come back and they continue to do the work, which I think is really important, because it's like this continual cleansing process. But we're very integration focused. So we typically have a doctor on site. My partner is a psychologist, so he is helping support the retreat. And we're really addressing aspects of the Western psyche that wouldn't necessarily be addressed. And it's also a little bit more feminine of an environment, in the sense that there's a little more comfort, than being in the jungle, and of course, better food. So we really want to make it easy, because it's never easy. It's never easy with Iboga, but we want to make at least the outside environment really nice, so that you can feel safe to go inside and face your stuff, because that's a lot of work as it is. And I feel like in our culture, we're just carrying generations of trauma, because we've just compiled it over, so many lifetimes of our ancestors, that's just been unprocessed since, we kind of entered into this Western colonized way of life.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because we're, I guess the indigenous community that we did have here, unfortunately, we, the people that came here to this continent to rule it and conquer it, absolutely ruined their culture and killed them and murdered them, and it's so incredibly sad. And you see a lot of Native people that are struggling with like alcohol addiction and things like that. And, because the white people, I guess, that came over centuries ago, like ruined their culture. And so really we're living in this weird melting pot of people now here in America, that don't really have connection to indigenous rites of passage, mythology and, ritual and ceremony, which is like, super important. You can't, I don't believe that you can function properly, sane and healthy in a world without that connection.
Yeah.
So it's, I think now what I'm seeing is, and what's been happening, I guess, more frequently for sure in the last, I guess 5, 6, 10 years, something like that, is, like a neo shamanism, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
or, an integrated version of something, kind of bootstrapping, healing, or so to speak, something like that, because we need it. Right. And we can't always plug into the cultures that we want, we go to, because they have a different worldview, and they don't know sort of our baggage, and we're dealing with a different story over here in the West, in America. So yeah, like, how does that all connect for you? Kind of like learning from these ancient ways and these rituals, and then kind of like integrating it, making this holistic kind of, as you put it, Western friendly approach to healing and to working with these plant medicines.
I really have to say that our culture has changed. We're not the same people we were before, and we need to have bridges between the cultures. I don't think necessarily that means taking someone else's tradition and going out there and practicing it. I think that there's a right way of doing it. I feel like we're learning through this process. I think the first thing we have to really go back to is the Western culture has always been reductionist and extractive. It's just the way that we've been for so long, taking things from Mother Nature and then selling them, whether it's water or electricity or, land or, mining or whatever it is. And if we want this really truly to reach its highest potential in our society and truly bring the healing that it was designed to bring, we have to do it in a way that's in harmony with nature. And so what that means is that we have to, number one, if we're using aspects of a tradition, we need to have an ongoing exchange with them. We can't just be, borrowing their songs, borrowing their teepee, borrowing, their clothing, their, whatever, feathers, all these things, without doing something for them. But knowing that some of them, not all of them, are also operating from some wounding as well. They may not know the answers either of what they need. They might say, well, we need money. Well, we know in our Western culture, because we've gone further down the rabbit hole in capitalism, that money is not the answer. Most of us are coming back and recovering from that old paradigm of just working for money. And really what it is us coming together in council, coming together in community, and collectively coming up with ways of exchange that are inclusive, that are mutually beneficial. Neither of us should, if we're getting healing, then they should be getting healing too. And what are some of the gifts that we can offer to indigenous culture? I'll give you a really fun example. So I started this little nonprofit project called Ancestral Heart, and the idea behind it was more about exploration of right relationship, because I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, we have the answers, we know all that kind of stuff. And so for my first project, I brought the Zulu tribe from South Africa to Burning Man last year. And here they are, straight,
Wow.
from Cape Town, never been to America, just got their visas for the first time. And I mean, it was a huge culture shock to them, but I was like, what's something that we have in our culture that we can be proud of, that we can share with, an indigenous culture that can be a beautiful mutual exchange. And there was such a beautiful dance and so much love exchanged. And it was so beautiful to
Wow.
experience that and to be able to be part of sharing that gift.
So they loved it.
Yeah, it was really fun, and it was just so incredible how it touched their heart, and just to see like the Facebook posts, and all that kind of stuff. It was really cool. And I see this is a challenge, especially with African culture, that I had a lot of difficulty getting visas to bring. Like, I actually tried to bring 3 tribes to Burning Man, and I only had success at getting 1 visas to come to the U.S. And we really are starved for culture, and I really do believe that a massive dissemination of indigenous wisdom has to happen to help dig us out of this hole that we're in right now, as a culture, as a Western culture, but it needs to be done in the right way.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I kind of was, when I was talking, I was saying like America, and I do say Western culture too. And I guess like Western culture to me, I suppose means like because it's all over the globe. It's not necessary. It's like the Western ideology, like the ideology of capitalism, crony capitalism, big government, empire building, imperialism, like that sort of mentality, consumerism, commodification of everything. That seems to be spreading. And one of the things that, that happens a lot of times is when there's something new and exciting in an area, like for example, down in Peru, even just right outside the jungle in Iquitos, there's a lot of people there that, because like when the Spanish came, they, obviously the conquistadors, and they converted everyone to Catholicism. And so you see big churches and, and there's a lot of like new Western products and services and movies and TV shows, and it's appealing because it's like, this is new, like we never had this before. So it's like this, and then like we're coming down there like, oh, we don't want any of this stuff, like we're going to your jungle and we're going to drink your medicine to connect back to your end. Like it's just it's funny how that works out, because it is alluring, it is seductive, and like you mentioned before, money isn't the answer. Like, I had jobs where I was making a lot of money, and I quit because I was like, this is it. Like, I don't, I mean, yeah, like having money, being able to do things is good, but working solely for that energy doesn't necessarily feel so good. So it's like, yeah, what's your take on that? Like, how do you kind of contend with like all these forces moving around?
That's a big rabbit hole. It's so interesting. As you were talking with me, when I was in Tulum, they were doing this like independent cinema, and there was this perfect photograph on the movie poster of this documentary about Mayan culture. And it's basically this Mayan elder, and he's fully like suited up. And then there's his little baby on the ground, like in this dirt floor hut. And it's all excited and it's playing with a toy car. And it was just like, almost like how like the sparkly flashiness of Western culture is so alluring, and such a trap that we can get caught in. And I really think like ultimately the answer to it is equanimity, like understanding where the positive aspects of it are, being able to share and connect on a mass scale, the way that the world is interconnected now through different things, is incredible. If you look at the way that a king lived, even a century ago, and you look at how we live now, we live better than that. Like we've kind of built on the backs of our ancestors in Western culture, where now we have roads, now we have, schools, post offices, all these, this infrastructure. And so I think it's like really finding a balance between both of those things, like finding a way to return to our roots, finding a way to take these big ideas and apply a holistic way of executing them. For instance, bringing back community, bringing back permaculture, and using, instead of having big businesses extracting and supporting one small group of people, using these concepts so that communities can be in cooperative and can be self-sustaining and can, create these mutually beneficial relationships that grow and allow them to flourish.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think it really stems down to like the power of belief. I think that if you have an experience that makes you feel that it's possible and you believe it's possible, then that's sort of what moves the needle, I think, in my opinion. Like I've seen it here when I moved to Denver and got involved in the decriminalization campaign. It was a lot of just passionate people coming together that wanted to make change. It wasn't like, we weren't like funded by Exxon or anything. It was like, there's just people, grassroots, like real grassroots kind of effort. So it is possible. And I think a lot of people, myself included at times, get into despair. Like, oh man, it's like such an uphill battle. Like, how are we going to do this? But then, connecting with other people that are also doing it, because it's all over, no matter where you go. I'm sure you meet people, right, that are on this path more and more now that you're on this path, and then that the world is opening up to you. So there's more opportunities, more ways to connect in community to make maybe once big out of reach dreams come to fruition. Like, have you noticed that? Have you noticed like more just like doors opening up and synchronicities and your world growing bigger? I'm sure you have. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I always make these jokes like where it's like, now I'm on the Toad Network or now I'm on the Medicine Network, because it's like, I notice that everyone kind of gets that, where they start to meet people that are like on a similar path, and, they're all like wanting the same things, having the same visions and dreams. And I just want to commend you for what you did in Denver as a collective with the decriminalized movement, because that's just another example of like, oh wow, that was even possible. It just was such a under the radar thing. And if we can all just like gather and do things like that, and really like, ultimately the way I see it is this, anyone that I feel, and like, please, everyone can have their own opinion. I feel like you become an advocacy, like almost like an activist once you start doing plant medicine, because you realize the world that you want. And all of a sudden you start to put energy into creating that world. And, that's a world where there's no racial divides, where everyone has clean air, clean water, organic food. I'm just sharing what I see, like where I would love the world to be. And to me, it's like worth my time, money, efforts, and just my soul alignment to align with helping bring that into fruition. And so, to me, like ultimately, I feel like this work is important planetary work, in the sense that we're building a movement of people that are independently sovereign, yet through their own heart's vision, all realize truth. And in alignment with that truth, we're all kind of seeing the same thing. We're like, what do we want? We don't want chemtrails. We don't want vaccinations. We want organic food. We want communities with ecstatic dance and sound healing and, cuddle puddles and,
Yeah. Cuddle puddles for sure. Yeah. So you just said a couple things that maybe would trigger some people to say, whoa. What do you mean by that? Chemtrails, vaccinations. But obviously, and we kind of started this talk off a little with like dark spirits and parasitical, insects and entities and things like that. And, I think a lot of this work, when you are going deep and you're entering into a space of healing, it's not all just like love and light. Obviously, I mean, that's a part of it. But as you said, we live in this world of duality. So yeah, there's messed up things that are going on. And I always tell people, like, you have to look at like the incentives, follow the money, follow the, why would somebody benefit from having you, get vaccinations? Like, why would somebody benefit from chemtrails? Why would somebody benefit from poisoning the water supply and, putting fluoride in and, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I would like to hear a little bit more about that, because I'm on the same page with you, and I feel like it can be a little bit of a controversial topic, even in the sort of psychedelic, consciousness, spirituality world, where you still kind of have people buying into this. Like, for me, for example, like I haven't owned a television in 10 years. I watch cable TV at all ever, except if I'm in like a whatever. And every time I see it, it's like, this is such a joke. Like, this is like the propaganda arm of the military industrial complex, pharmaceutical, education, nightmare brainwashing factory. So obviously, like, we're sort of in a cosmic Gnostic battle for healing ourselves and the planet, and kind of trying to lessen or maybe even eradicate this dark force. So what's your take on all this? Like, what do you believe? What do you think's going on? What have you seen? What have you experienced to know?
Well, there's a lot of things I've seen and experienced. And I mean, ultimately, these things have happened because of our collective unconsciousness. We have authorized it because we've been asleep at the wheel. Like, the only way you are fully in your power is when your soul is driving. And in every moment, you have a choice to empower the ego, our shadow aspect of our conscious, our unconscious, the part that's kind of shaped through our trauma. Or you have the option to empower your soul. And here we are as a collective, we've really gotten separated from being able to tap into that inner wisdom. And, if you were looking at it like a metric, like if you were looking at, like, let's say it was like this video game, and in the video game, your goal is like, gotta let the soul drive. Like most of us, our souls are not like in a very high percentage driving all the time, and then as we're starting to get into this work, we're learning how to empower them. And it's not easy. I mean, there's a lot of spiritual bypass happening. There's a lot of disassociation due to trauma, and it's unconscious. It's like we sometimes aren't even aware that we're doing this. And I see this so much in the work that I do on an individual level with people, where we really just have to realize that it's our free will. We always have a free will choice of whether we're choosing love or we're choosing the power. And the power isn't real power. It's this fake power that is elusive, that you just keep, the sparkly thing that you just keep chasing after. And so, I really believe that this force really is taking advantage of that because they're basically harnessing that energy and using it. And it's not separate from us. It is part of us. Everything is all one, but we do have the opportunity to choose a new reality for ourselves by all collectively making that choice. And statistically, if you look at things like the Maharishi effect, which is where transcendental meditators were in war zones and they meditated, and the war violence went down incrementally based on how many people were meditating together. That to me is a proven fact of like when we make that conscious choice to really be present, to really bring in a loving vibration. It's not all woo-woo, unicorns and rainbows and all that stuff. I mean, it must have been real for someone who is like, a being that is in such service that he would go to a war zone and to see like death and destruction all around him and to be able to ground himself in that energy. I'm sure that they're like, I'm an empath. So I feel like if I entered a city where there was a lot of like fear and anger and, distrust and uncertainty, I would feel that energy. So to be able to go into that space and to be able to ground yourself and then to vibrate in that frequency of presence and love is it takes a lot of spiritual strength. And so really here we are now, where we have this choice to make as a society. Like what do we want the next 100 years to look like? What do we want the next 10 years to look like?
Yeah. What do we want our reality to be? Yeah. Because we can make it amazing. We can. Yeah. What are some things that you do to choose to choose love, to choose positive, to choose good energy, to be in a higher vibration, like outside of working with Bufo or Iboga or plant medicines, maybe, like meditation or something? Do you have like a daily practice, or do you have certain kinds of tips or tricks that you do to sort of get yourself back on the path if you feel yourself thinking negatively or in despair? Because I feel like it comes along with the journey too, like being an empath. Like I guess I would consider myself one too, where it's just like you take in everything. Like your capacity to feel is so massive that you can feel the highest highs, but that also allows you to feel the lowest lows. And it really, like I constantly am feeling energy when I'm moving around in different crowds and different peoples in different cities, and constantly hearing conversations going on around me and everything happening. And it can be a lot to take in. So yeah, I'm wondering how you kind of navigate that, what you use to kind of stay on track.
So, I mean, there's a few different things. So the first thing is, in these initiations, really what the initiation is it's suffering in a controlled environment. Going in, knowing you're going to suffer, knowing also that there's kind of a group of people like watching out for you if it gets too crazy, you're not going to like die or anything. And I feel like in our culture, we've just been so suffering adverse that we run from it. And that really prevents us from really entering ourselves, because we're constantly looking for the next thing to distract ourselves from our feelings. And so I think there's certain modalities that can help you with that. Facing things that are hard. Like, for example, if I go and I sweat, then I go do the cold plunge. And that's like uncomfortable. I hate being cold. I don't like the cold plunge, but I'm always like, it's good for my karma. It's good for my karma. It's good for my karma. And I hop in and it balances you. And then, I felt like combo therapy has been really beneficial for teaching me to face suffering, because you get in this really uncomfortable space for a very short period of time, and you're sometimes throwing up and got things coming out of both ends, and your head feels like it's going to explode. Your heart feels like it's going to explode. But then after a few minutes, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. I feel so good. And those things actually help your immune system. They boost your immunity. They make you strong. And then I would say, like, really, your breath, staying connected to your breath all the time, the more that you realize that the breath really controls the experience. Because if you're not focusing on your breath, then it's really easy for the mind to create suffering for you. Because the mind, what it does is something happens, you anticipate it, and you're like, either this is going to be really good or this is going to be really bad. And it projects that into the future, and it keeps you from being really present as we're just being in your breath, really feeling it, feeling your nose hairs vibrate, really, taking the time to slowly sip it in and to slowly release it. Really just put you in your body to where you're feeling, you're fully on board, you're connected to all of your senses within your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Amazing. So, what do you have going on right now? I know you mentioned that you're planning, I don't know, can I say it on the podcast? You're planning a book. Is that, am I able to share that?
Yeah. So, I have a book, and we're working with the publishers right now. I can't release that information yet, but I'm really tempted to say the title, but I'm afraid they're gonna change it. But it's most likely going to be out late 2020. And what's really exciting about this is, of all the initiations I've been through, this one has been the hardest, writing this book, to actually just sit down and focus. And then I feel like these parts of myself, like, it's just like, I suck. This isn't going to be any good. Am I ever going to get this done? And then, working with my editor and my agent, they're both like, oh, this is amazing. This is great. And, getting that like confirmation, it's just been like, whew, quite a journey. And so, I'm just really grateful to be able to share this. And I really feel it's a way to get the medicine out to a lot of people. And so I'm just really hoping that it reaches a lot of people, and that it reaches the right people that can really benefit from it.
Cool. So is it going to be kind of like based on your life then? Like, is it a nonfiction or a fiction book?
So it's nonfiction, and it's a combination of a lot of like really interesting tidbits and stuff that you'd only get from firsthand experience from like facilitating, working with like 1,500 people.
Yeah.
And so it's like just really consistent information in my own learning and discovery around understanding the psyche, the egoic framework, how to really connect, and really just kind of a deep understanding of how this crazy universe works and how we can get the most out of our experiences as humans. And I really feel a lot of the things that were contained in ancient wisdom, we've become really separated from in our culture. And I think that there are still a lot of people that are guarded, that aren't necessary. They still, are more on the scientific side of things and pragmatic side of things. And they might, kind of shy away from something that's a little more out there. So I try to really bring things in a way that, it's honor, respect, taking these indigenous perspectives, but doing so in a respectful way, and also in a way that we can reach our modern culture.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. Well, I know you have some eggs and hash browns to get to, so I probably shouldn't keep you for too much longer. But yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to maybe touch on, or I don't know. Sometimes I always ask people like what their like big vision is, but I think I pretty much got yours, unless there's more to it. But is there? And the other question sometimes I ask at the end is like, what's the thing that's most currently exciting you? But it seems like that's probably the book, right? I don't know. Is there more to that? Does any of those questions feel like they have any answers to give there?
Yeah, I would say like really like I think in our culture, there's, this way of healing that's like been around for a long time. And it's like people going in and healing themselves and like, oh, I have to heal this thing. And if you just are focused on healing all the time, you're just going to find more things to heal.
Oh, I love that you just, I love that you're talking about this, because I've been talking about this a lot lately, like addicted to the healing. Yeah. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. And I think that even, in our commodified society, we've commodified healing. And I think the healer should be compensated for all the massive amount of work and studies they've done, but we don't want to become dependent on it. We ultimately, it's about doing the work. But most importantly, and this is something I really focus on in my book, is we're here to create. We came here as creative beings.
Yeah.
And as creative beings, really what's important is to get clear intentions on, getting clear on what you're here to create. Of course, letting go of how it's created, but really aligning with that creative part of yourself and knowing that when you do that, all those little things that need to be healed are going to come up as the speed bumps along your way in your creative process. So you don't actually have to go drink ayahuasca to heal your trauma with your mom and dad.
Ah, wow.
You can just really go in and get clear. We're here to be masters. We're here to master the idea of living in duality. We're here to find equanimity and peace in that, to be able to accept that this is a reality that we live in, and to empower ourselves to step into the highest expression of how that can come, how much light, how much love, how much beauty can shine through in a place that isn't always the most light, or isn't always the most beautiful. So I just think it's just such an important reminder, and an orientation to live by, to understand.
Yeah. And creating is fun. This conversation has been fun. Like, we're creating something right now, and creating and collaborating and community. And then all of a sudden you're syncing up with like-minded, like-hearted people, and you're in flow, and you're like, well, how did this happen? How the hell did I make this thing? And yeah, it's truly amazing. It's a wonderful gift. So yeah, just be the medicine that you need, and follow your heart. Wow. Wonderfully said, beautifully put, Tricia. I'm so glad that you decided to say that at the end. So, yeah, that was great. Tell the people where they can go and find you, and check out some of the retreats that you're offering and things like that.
My website is psychedelicjourneys.com, easiest one to remember. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Psychedelic Journey, Journeys with an S. I really love psychedelic art. I really love being inspired by the community. So I have a lot of stuff like that on my Instagram. And I love what you're doing. And by the way, I have to say, really excited that we're now more connected and excited for future stuff, and just love how you are and everything. It was so funny when I was thinking about you. I was like, I went for this hike and I was like, oh my God, it's like Mycadelic, except for I'm doing the hikadelic. It's like if you do psychedelics while you hike, it's a hikadelic.
Yes.
Yeah, but I'm just like, I love what you stand for. I love everything that you're doing, and I'm excited to play more. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, totally. Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much. Yeah. Yeah. I've been going on them. I've been calling them micro doses lately. So yeah.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Tricia, this has been a real pleasure. I'll talk to you soon, and thanks for listening, everyone. Bye. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you did, go and leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. You can leave a 5-star rating and a review if you feel like writing something. That would be great. It helps the show a lot, helps us bump us up in the Apple algorithm, get the podcast exposed to more people. So if you like the show, go ahead and do that. If you want to go a step further, go to patreon.com/Mike Brank. You can donate, become a patron, be a part of the Mycadelic Inner Sanctum WhatsApp chat group of people chatting and connecting all around the world. We're finding the others, bringing them together, creating community, one of my favorite things to offer. I also release bonus episodes. Sometimes I do episodes that are kind of raw and kind of beta test them for the producers of the show, which are my patrons, the people who support the show. Big shout out to everybody that's a patron. Thank you for your love and support. If you want to do a one-time donation, go to my website, mikebrank.com. Go to PayPal and do a one-time donation if you feel that. And I really like the method of donation. It's a gifting mentality. And reading Charles Eisenstein's books recently and his talks have really kind of made me embrace the spirit of the gift, of giving and gifting. And what better time than this holiday season to be generous and to give. And, you know, if you like the show, just tell people about it, spread it, share it. Also, contact me. Go to my email on my website, the contact page, mikebrank.com. Reach me on Instagram, Psychedelic_podcast. Hit me up on Facebook. Send me your messages. Send me your thoughts. Send me guest suggestions, ideas. Share your story with me. Reach out. Give me feedback. What do you like? What don't you like? And I love to hear from people. I always respond. So you can go ahead and do that. If you're interested in CBD, we have Hemp Bombs as a sponsor. You can go to hempbombs.com, get all kinds of CBD stuff. And I used to take their gummies. I think I'm going to start taking them again. I ran out, so I got to get some more. But they're really good. And yeah, check it out. If you're interested in CBD, you want to give it a try, put in the code Mike15 at checkout and get 15% off all of your CBD wants, desires, needs, and so forth. Big shout out to Danny Barnett and Galaxia for the music, the intro and the outro. And of course, thanks to Muse, who I mash up their song and put the Terrence McKenna clips and everything in without their permission, but somehow I'm still able to do it. So thanks, because I love that. And what else? I don't know. Thank you so much to everybody for your love and support, for listening. And yeah, I really, from the bottom of my heart, really can't express how grateful I am that out of all the podcasts out there that you choose this one to listen to. And like I said, let's really make this a collaborative effort. If there's something that you hear, that you notice, you know, something going on with the show that you're like, hey, you used to do this or you do that, or I'd like to see this, or hey, did you ever think about that? Shoot me a message. I'm open. I communicate. I message back. I like this to be a collaborative effort. I want more community involved in this. So anyway, thanks. And till next time, peace.